Good afternoon. Hope everybody had a great Mother's Day weekend. As we're down to our final two community times of the year, we have a jam-packed week. We'll go ahead and get started. Today, we have our final two senior speeches of the year. I want to thank each senior who participated this year by sharing their perspectives with our upper school community. Today, we welcome Elizabeth Shannon and Lauren Knapp to the podium in the Thurber Arts Center for our final two senior speeches.
Good afternoon. On October 2nd, 1950, Charles M. Schulz launched the Peanuts cartoons into the daily papers. That day, he created one of the most widely beloved American cartoons of all times. Almost everyone has seen Peanuts in one form or another. For my family, it would be considered a crime, on par with fratricide, to neglect to watch any one of the Peanuts holiday specials. For longer than I can remember, we've gathered around the television with popcorn and the two fleece blankets made by my aunt made to watch Charlie Brown and his friends on their many adventures. We've laughed watching Charlie Brown serve buttered toast as Thanksgiving dinner. We've grown quiet as he was mocked for picking out the wimpiest Christmas tree. Our holiday season would not be complete without the Peanuts cartoons. Our favorite, however, is the Halloween special. In It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, apart from watching Linus make a fool of himself in the pumpkin patch, my whole family loves to tease me for my uncanny resemblance to Charlie Brown. He goes trick-or-treating with his friends, and, after each house, all the children share what they were given. Lucy and Sally and the others all get candy bars or gum. But at every house, Charlie Brown gets a rock. My mom and dad always howl with laughter when he says in his meek, disappointed voice, "I got a rock." It became a running joke in my family that I would often get a rock in situations. At the time, my bad luck seemed to be inescapable. Much like Charlie Brown, I seemed to get the rotten end of every deal. My pattern of bad luck just became a thing that we all laughed at, until I learned to look at the situation in a different way. When the middle school principal forgot to mention my name for making Junior National Honor Society, I got a rock. When we took turns giving each other field hockey buddy gifts for games, and my buddy forgot until the morning of the game and just gave me a scribbled sign, I got a rock. When my wallet was taken out of my gym bag and never returned, I got a rock. When I went skiing and the instructor didn't attach one of my skis correctly, and the ski flew off as I was zipping down the mountain, causing me to fall down off the trail with one ski and be stranded for half an hour, I got a rock. When my luggage was lost at the airport, I got a rock. When my best friend moved out of the country, my dad took a job in another state, I totaled my car, and I experienced the worst anxiety of my life all within 1 month, I got a rock. By the fall of my junior year, I was beginning to be fed up with getting a rock. I felt that I had collected enough rocks to start my own quarry. Most of the rocks were just pebbles, but as time went on, I began to gather boulders as well. It was hard to handle. My bad luck wasn't funny anymore. I started pulling away from my friends and family. I felt like I would never stop feeling this heaviness. At first, I didn't try to feel better. I was too afraid to get in a car for a while, and I wished my friend wasn't 8 time zones away. I sat around and pitied myself all of the time. I spent an embarrassing amount of time looking at the scar on my arm from the wreck, or checking Life 360 to see my dad's location in another state and feeling sorry for myself. Finally, I realized that my pain had become self-inflicted. My parents didn't raise me to sit alone and feel sorry for myself. They raised me to fix my own problems. I decided it was time to get out of this funk. I thought back to Charlie Brown and wondered what he would have done. I do, after all, resemble his personality in many ways. I can come off as shy at times. I have a tendency towards panic. I can't make a decision to save my life. I'm good old wishy-washy Charlie Brown. Then it struck me. No matter how many rocks Charlie Brown caught, he continued to carry his bag to the next house. He was never discouraged. He had hope every single time and didn't carry around any bitterness towards his situation. Charlie Brown and I may have bad luck. We may be the butt of some jokes and the one that seems to get left out. But Charlie Brown taught me to just smile, have hope, and carry my bag to the next house. At the time, it wasn't as simple as that to pull myself out of the hole I had gotten in, but Charlie Brown always helped me. When I made the decision to change my mindset, I finally experienced a turning point in my bad luck. If I decided that I wouldn't let the small things upset me, I could lighten my burden substantially. Eventually, this helped me to overcome the bigger challenges in my life as well. I got comfortable driving again. My dad and I started texting each other throughout the week when he wasn't home. I learned to spend less time pitying myself and more time laughing about my bad luck and then figuring out how to fix it. Above all, Charlie Brown taught me about mental toughness. This is a skill that I have wrestled to perfect throughout high school. Randolph is the perfect environment for learning about mental toughness. This school commands each student to work our hardest to meet its high standards for how we conduct ourselves both academically and behaviorally. It presents us with challenges and the tools to overcome them, but then it is up to us to choose to be like Charlie Brown and face each day with an open mind. My experiences at Randolph and in my everyday life have forced me to redefine my idea of a strong person. A strong person isn't necessarily someone who is physically overpowering or someone that never shows their emotions. A strong person is someone who is mentally tough and faces each new challenge with the mindset that they will overcome it. In the past, I did not think of myself as a strong person for the same reasons that I did not think of Charlie Brown as a strong person. We didn't seem strong. I thought that all these years watching Peanuts, I had just learned that I was pathetic. I was wrong. I spent my childhood watching Charlie Brown's silent perseverance and mimicking it. The people close to me will say that I'm one of the most goal-oriented people that they know. They will say that I don't give up when things are tough. Having Charlie Brown as my role model is the main reason that last fall, when all seemed hopeless and daunting, I forced myself to stop wallowing in self-pity and focus on the next goal. I had to recognize my inner strength to be able to pull myself out of that dark place. Now, I'm proud to be Charlie Brown. I share the comparison with anyone who will listen. It always gets a good laugh, but the resemblance means a lot to me. I learned quiet determination from him. I still get rocks quite often, but now I know how to laugh it off and hope that next time I'll get a candy bar. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I've grown up with anxiety all my life. It's something that took my family and I a very long time to adjust to and will probably take a lifetime to heal from. Now, my anxiety stems from lots of different things. It may be as simple as driving down the road or as overwhelming as who I want to be. I anxiously obsess over my relationships with teachers and peers and how they perceive me and how that will affect my development. And I'll tell you, this has severely damaged my pride and has beaten me down until I feel like I'm worth nothing. I've heard many senior speeches written by friends who seem to be a lot more confident than me and a lot more driven. So, in the spirit of being your final senior speech of the year and the last one I may ever encounter, seeing as though I'm graduating soon, I'd like to address the impact a lot of these speeches have had on me. Most of these terrific speeches tend to be about doing better, improving, and working harder. And though there is nothing wrong with that, my message to you is going to be the exact opposite. I often find myself at the end of these speeches feeling a bit anxious, as if now I have an expectation to uphold after hearing an encouraging speech about how I can improve myself. Now, I'm completely willing to accept this reaction as just a reflection of my own faults and insecurities, but at some point, I have to give myself a break. I did some reflecting, hoping to find out why I have this reaction most of the time, and I realized that my obsession with telling myself I could do better was so harmful. I've been heavily involved in theater for about 8 years, and in that time, while doing what I loved, I held myself to a pretty high standard. For years, my nights were filled with racing thoughts about how I could improve, not just in performance, but in my relationships with teachers and peers, my role as a leader, and how I could be as perfect and involved as possible. I obsessed over my work, disregarding all praise and reassurance that I was doing a good job as a caretaker, as a friend, and as a performer. And recently, I was approached by a parent who thanked me for everything I had done in helping their child find a place in Theater Randolph. I graciously thanked them, but for some reason, I couldn't help but deny the impact I had had. My refusal to appreciate my accomplishments had become a nasty habit, and it took me up until this year to realize how sick and tired I had become, and any sense of confidence I had in myself was pretty much gone. I felt helpless. A little bit into the year, I spoke to Mr. Townsend about joining his graphic design class. Now, I hadn't taken a visual art since my freshman year, so I would be going in with almost no classroom experience. I knew that my desire for masterful work would be tested. And on my first day there, as I began my first piece of work, I told myself I was going to allow myself to be imperfect while still getting sleep at night. I knew that this was going to be an exercise in allowing myself to be mediocre and to be content in that. We constantly tell ourselves we're a work in progress and ignore how wonderful we are right now. We compare and contrast to anything and everything around us, but in reality, you don't have to have an A in the class. You don't have to be president or vice president or secretary or historian. You can just be in a club. Or you don't have to at all. As long as you're taking care of yourself and knowing that you're valid and worth it, no matter what your list of accomplishments looks like. Something to also be aware of is that you can't expect other people to be high achievers as well. Look to the person beside you and tell yourself they're allowed to feel proud and happy for what they've done. They don't need to fit into your definition of accomplished and smart. And there's nothing wrong with someone not working as hard as you do. I mention this only because I hear these things often. It seems that all of us have a part of ourselves that base others' worth off of how driven they are. Now, I'm extremely grateful to go to this school, but what I strongly believe our culture has to unlearn is that it's not a race to the top. That is not what this is about. A student can end up in a community college, or they can end up at an Ivy League school. We are here to have the experiences we're going to have, and there is no reason to ingrain this idea of power and perfection in our students and teachers, because that's not what's important. You are important. What you feel is important. What you think is important. What you desire and what you want is important, even if it's easier or simpler than what people expect from you. My advisor, Mr. Townsend, has been one of the most influential figures in my life, and I'm confident in saying that he always will be. He has taught me so much in the past 4 years, and I know I wouldn't be as witty, confident, and strong as I am today if I hadn't had him around. One day I was speaking to him about the different experiences I wanted to have in my life, but I felt devoted to the path that had already been laid out for me. Go to college, find a job, and make money. He looked at me and he said, "There's no one way to live." And that one sentence changed everything for me. I saw it as a wake-up call for me to stop taking things so seriously, and that I don't have to be the most successful person ever, as long as I'm happy in my experiences. I feel that this is what a lot of us need to be reminded of all throughout our life, because you're allowed to enjoy where you're at and how far you've come, even if you're 50 with a career or 17 not knowing what you'll do next. For the high schoolers, this is a time where a lot of people are asking the big questions, almost to the point where you don't have time to ask yourself them. But you're allowed to not know and to be proud of yourself for just being here. You've done a lot of living, and you're going to do a lot more. So be proud of yourself for everything, big and small. Take a deep breath, and you'll be fine. I'd like to end my speech with one of my favorite poems written by Wendy Cope called The Orange. At lunchtime, I bought a huge orange. The size of it made us all laugh. I peeled it and shared it with Robert and Dave. They got quarters, and I had a half. And that orange, it made me so happy, as ordinary things often do just lately. The shopping, a walk in the park. This is peace and contentment. It's new. The rest of the day was quite easy. I did all the jobs on my list and enjoyed them and had some time over. I love you. I'm glad I exist. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Today, we're also excited to bring you the interim options for next year. Yes, you heard me right. Our plan is to hold interim as normal. I'll let Ms. Kewen share the experiences that are going to be available next year with you now.
Good afternoon. I'm here to talk to you today about interim for 2022. I have a brief sway that I will go through and show you the different opportunities. Just know that everything we talk about right now is pretty tentative. Things may change by the time we get back to school together in August, but this will give you an idea of what's ahead and what we're planning, so you can start planning a little bit too. First of all, things to consider before you get registered. Interim next year is March 7th through the 11th, 2022. It's early in March, so you'll have to keep that in mind. Registration, as always, is online for everything, even career exploration, internships, service, everything. We want to know what you're going to do, so we have a clear example of how to plan. Payment for anything that costs something is by credit card in full through My Randolph. So make sure you know how to work My Randolph. Full descriptions of everything will be on Canvas in the near future, and I'll let you know when that happens. It'll be under the upper school course and then the interim tab. Again, you will register through My Randolph. Registration opens on September 7th for seniors only at 8 a.m. They get to register for a week, and then it opens for everybody. Seniors no longer have priority after it opens for everybody on September the 14th at 8 a.m. Read registration and refund policies carefully. If you've made a mistake and changed your mind, you may not get all your money back, so make sure you think carefully about your choices. Part of your registration for some trips is non-refundable. Trips are to be paid in full at registration. There's no splitting of payments. Read the code of conduct carefully. If this is not a code of conduct you feel you can follow, please do not consider going on a trip. Make sure you turn in all your paperwork, your applications, copies of passports by the due date, or even better, sooner, so that you can be considered for the trip. If we end up going on an international trip, passports must be valid through September 1st, 2022. That is a State Department rule. We need to make sure we can get you back into the country. Registration, again, will be through My Randolph, so make sure you've logged in and you know how to navigate it. We do have a tentative trip planned for France next year. This may change based on how COVID goes, so keep that in mind. This is led by Dr. Green and Mrs. Lawson. It's approximately $4,100. The trip goes from Paris to Normandy and everywhere in between. If that falls through, we'd try for a Canadian trip to Quebec and Montreal for $2,500, led again by Dr. Green and Mrs. Lawson. This is again contingent on Canada opening its border with us. This is actually a super fun trip with lots of outdoor activities, tobogganing, hiking, snow tubing, as well as some very historic sites to see. And it is a full language immersion trip, as is the France one. You're expected to use your French. Domestically, we have lots of options. There's a trip to Alaska for $3,601. This is led by Mrs. Booth and Mrs. Wimberly. This trip goes from Anchorage all the way to Denali and places in between. Lots of outdoor activities as well. If you're not a cold weather person, this might not be the trip for you, but I can't imagine you'd have more fun. This is a great trip. If you're more of a warm weather person, there's a trip to the Florida Keys for approximately $26.91. This one is led by Miss Andrada and Mr. Holleran, and it's through the Everglades. There's a trip to Key Largo to see some corals, as well as kayaking through the mangrove forests, and a lot of visits to aquariums and places to study the ecology of the area. Puerto Rico is on the menu as well, $25.83. This is led by Senora Almodovar and Mrs. McMitchins. The trip will go to Old San Juan, Ponce, several other places. The priority for this trip will be given to Spanish students, so keep that in mind. If you'd like to go out west, there's a trip for $27.70 led by Mrs. Santos and Coach Gaunt. This is a very physical trip. There's a lot of rowing and hiking and riding bikes and walking, so make sure you're up for it. But it is a fabulous trip. A lot of beautiful scenery, a lot of geology, a lot of science, and just a real challenge. If you're into cooking, the Nashville culinary trip might be up your alley for $12.68. This is led by Mr. and Mrs. Hillink and Mr. Davis. You will go to cooking classes every day. You'll do lots of eating. You'll also do a workout session at the YMCA, do some service at Second Harvest. You'll eat some chocolate. You'll work with chocolate, bake with chocolate, and then you'll cook for your family when you get back. The Artist Retreat in Eureka Springs is a very interesting trip. Lots of activities and some focused time to work on a project. It costs $950. It's led by Miss Russick and Mr. G. You do have that concentrated time throughout the work to work on a special project. It doesn't have to be an artistic one. It's anything where you need creativity. Writing a program, writing a song, working on a painting, learning a new dance, anything that you would like to share with a group when you finish. Plus, you get lots of fun things to do in Eureka Springs, lots of fabulous food, touring local places of interest. It's a very fun trip. Mr. Matthews and Mr. Rayford are sponsoring a trip to Washington, D.C. in New York City for $23.50. First, you'll go to D.C., where you will see many monuments and Smithsonian museums, the Holocaust Museum, National Archives, and then you'll travel to New York City, where you'll see a Broadway show. You'll take a ferry around the Statue of Liberty, take a walk in Central Park, go to Little Italy. Should be a great trip. If you'd like to do some service away from home, you can travel with Mr. Sulster and Ms. McCall to Marysville, Tennessee, where you'll work with a habitat organization, building a house, or maybe fixing a house, or doing some work in their garden, all sorts of things that can be done. And it's always a lot of fun, a lot of outside activities to keep things going. Locally, we have a fabulous opportunity to spend a week in a research lab at Hudson Alpha. The tuition for this project is $776 and is led by Ms. Weesey. We also have a week of service. This is led by me this year, and what we do is we arrange for some service projects that you can sign up for, or if you are really passionate about something yourself, you can create your own service project as long as we okay it. And you have until January 28th to get approval. And we take care of making sure you get to the different sites and keep track of your hours. Again, if you have a project in mind, just make sure that I know about it. We also have career explorations. If you're interested in pursuing a different career and you just want to learn more about it, we can help you find a placement if you let us know by September 24th. Otherwise, we're going to count on you finding your own career placement for that exploration. Each career exploration or personal service project needs to be 35 hours long. Keep that in mind if you're designing your own. 35 hours is the minimum. We also have Hudson Alpha internships. You can apply for these by application. These are free. There is no tuition involved in these. And the application will be available in the fall here in the library, and it has to be in by September 24th. But again, I'm going to cover all this information with you again. This gives you just a taste of what's coming up. We also have a leadership opportunity. If you're interested in going to Chicago, you can go so as a trip intern, helping lead the trip for our freshmen. It costs $1,100, and there is an application process. And those deadlines are September 16th, and those applications will be available in the fall. The 9th grade will go on a trip to Chicago. It's going to be lots of fun, lots of activities. There are architectural activities, walking, eating, entertainment, athletic events. It's busy all the time, and it's a great trip. There's some pictures from some fun that's been had in the past. I'm not going to show you the video because it will stop while I'm showing it to you. But this sway will be available to you so you can watch it yourself. What to do next? Well, next you need to check out all the information on the Canvas pages when it's ready. I'll send you a message when it's ready. And you need to talk to your parents. To get to that information, you go to the upper school page and then go to interim. Talk to your parents about what it is you can afford, what you're interested in. Look at the trip dates. Make sure it doesn't interfere with anything else you've got going on. Make sure you read the registration policies and the code of conduct. Make sure you understand what's deposit is available or what's non-refundable, and make up your mind. And again, another video you can watch on your own. I hope this has gotten you excited about what the opportunities are for next year. Don't forget, I'll tell you all this information again in August, and all the forms that you'll need will be available to you at that time. Thanks for listening.
This week in athletics, we have two teams who will be competing. After softball's excellent showing in last week's area tournament, they've advanced to the regional tournament that will take place in Florence. Their first round game will take place Friday morning, and then later that day, football will host its spring jamboree game at 6 o'clock at home. Last week also marked the end of our golf season. Congratulations to our boys golf team on making such a great postseason run. Also over the weekend, we had another student, Carter Pollock, win the 17U U.S. Rowing Southeastern Regionals. It's quite an accomplishment, and congratulations, Carter. In other announcements, remember that the third floor is going to remain a quieter environment this week as we continue to hold AP exams upstairs. Juniors, as more periods open up as free periods, remember, you may only leave campus if you do not have any more classes remaining. Also, we will have a mandatory junior class meeting this Tuesday, that's tomorrow, in the Thurber Arts Center immediately after school at 2:25 p.m. And finally, don't forget that this Friday, the SGA is throwing the Spring Carnival on the Commons lawn. It'll take place from 4 o'clock to 6. It's going to be a great opportunity to take a break from the stress of the end of the year, exam preparations, etc., and have some fun alongside your classmates. We've also invited our rising 9th graders who will be joining us next year on Garth for the event. At the end of the carnival, go ahead and head on over to the stadium for the spring football game. Friday, we'll also see the running of the hallways for the seniors at the end of the day. It'll be the seniors' final day of classes of high school. We look forward to the running. Thank you for your time today. As we finish the year, be sure to spend that time with your teachers to finish strong. Don't wait to study for exams, but be sure to find some time for self-care as well. Be excellent to each other, and for the last time this year, seniors, the class of 2021, you are dismissed.